What is up, everybody? So we are coming into a very crucial, very important matchup this Sunday, Packers versus Vikings. And the Packers have a chance to get some revenge after the Week 1 beatdown by the Vikings, looking back, 16 weeks now, losing to the Vikings in the first game of the season, 23-7. But I think looking at the Packers back then compared to now, there are so many different things that have changed, and I think very many reasons to be hopeful when we look at the Packers and their performances the past 3 weeks. Of course, the Vikings come in here as one of the best teams in the NFL, at least when it comes to record. Point differential, I think they're barely above 0. So I think that the Vikings have found a way to be very good in close games. They have not really blown out lots of teams. And I think that, honestly, the Packers at Lambeau Field have a very good shot to beat the Minnesota Vikings and continue to keep our playoff hopes alive. Because as many of you probably already know, the Packers need to win their final 2 games to make the playoffs. And we also need something else to go our way. Either the Commanders lose 1 game or the Giants lose 2 games. There could be some other crazy scenario, but those are the easiest and the most likely things the Packers need to have happen coming in here to face off against the Minnesota Vikings at home at Lambeau Field on Sunday. And when we look at the Packers the past 3 weeks, they have been on a hot streak, going from 4-8 to now 7-8. The first 2 wins against the Rams and the Bears, those are games the Packers needed to take care of. But I think this past week, the win against the Miami Dolphins on Christmas in Miami gives me lots of excitement for the future, for the next couple of weeks, for our potential playoff chances, because the Miami Dolphins are a very talented team. They're a very explosive offense. We saw that in the first half. They had a 84-yard touchdown to Jalen Waddle, another 50-yard pass to Tyreek Hill. But after the first half, the Packers were able to shut down the Dolphins completely. 0 points in the second half, 3 interceptions on Tua in the fourth quarter. And now with Tua having that concussion that he suffered at some point during the game, maybe that's one of the, why he was making such poor decisions in the fourth quarter. But regardless, the Packers were able to take advantage. So now coming into this matchup on Sunday, I do think it's going to be a pretty close game. The Packers do have the advantage of being at home, but the Minnesota Vikings have one of the best offenses in the NFL. One of the, offenses with so many different weapons that can beat you in many different ways. With Dalvin Cook at running back, Justin Jefferson, who's nearing that 2,000-yard mark. He torched the Packers in Week 1, 9 receptions for 184 yards. And then, of course, the addition this season, during the season, to bring in TJ Hawkinson has really helped this Vikings offense as well. And so when we look at this matchup and we compare it to Week 1, the Packers were able to hold the Vikings to 23 points. Wasn't great, but most of the damage came in the first half. I believe Justin Jefferson had like 140 or 150 yards just in the first half. The Packers couldn't stop him running across the field. And hopefully this week the Packers can cook up something to at least contain Justin Jefferson a little bit, because I don't expect the Packers to completely shut out Justin Jefferson. He's one of the best, probably top 2, top 1 receiver, depending on who you ask. I still think Devontae is up there as well. But I'd say he and Devontae, honestly, top 2 receivers in my mind. And no matter who you are, no matter what your defense is, Justin Jefferson is going to make some big plays, and he's going to get open at times, which you just can't really completely silence him or shut him down completely. And so when we look back to Week 1, there was a discussion when it came to should Jair have followed Justin Jefferson around the entire game. And from Jair's press conference after the game, it seemed like that's really what he wanted to do, but the Packers defense, or Joe Barry, didn't really think it was the best idea to do that. He and Matt LaFleur both stated how when you get a guy to follow someone around the entire game, it sort of changes everything else in the defense. The Packers didn't really think it was necessary, so I'm curious to see if they change that coming into this game. Will they try to put Jair on Justin Jefferson a majority of the game? Who knows? They also do trust Rasul Douglas, so they could pass him around there. I did come across a very interesting video this morning from former Packer Leroy Butler, safety back in the 90s, I believe it was. And he was talking about what he thinks the Packers should do to stop Justin Jefferson in this Vikings offense. And he said he thinks the Packers should play cover 2-man with the safeties in zone and then the corners playing up on the receivers to sort of disrupt them at the line of scrimmage. Because he said receivers love when you play 10 to 15 yards off. And I think many times this year, especially in third down and long situations, it seems like Joe Barry loves to play soft coverage, which I don't completely understand in those situations. But Leroy Butler himself said that he thinks the Packers should, man up with the corners and then play the safeties back there deep for, with some help back there. So I'm curious to see what Joe Barry's plan is. How is he going to try to stop this Vikings offense? Because even if you can stop Justin Jefferson, which is a very big if, hopefully the Packers can contain him just enough. They still have Dalvin Cook, who can explode at any moment for a massive run. They also have TJ Hawkinson, who is a beast in the middle of the field. So the Packers definitely have their hands full. I do think, though, one area the Packers can come away on defense, have a productive game, is if they can get this pass rush going. We saw in the second half last week the Packers pass rush more consistently in the second half than the first half, getting pressure on Tua, which forced him to make some bad decisions, scramble out of the pocket. We saw Jarran Reed have probably his most productive game on the defensive line the entire year. We saw Devontae Wyatt have a couple of nice plays as well. And with Dean Lowry now on the IR, Devontae Wyatt is going to have a lot more opportunity. So I'm honestly very excited to see what he can do, because he hasn't had much opportunity to start the year with Dean Lowry and Jarran Reed taking up most of those snaps. But I want to show you I'd say the biggest weakness on this Minnesota Vikings offense, and it's the interior of their offensive line. So on the further tackles, they're pretty solid. Darisaw at left tackle, second graded tackle by PFF. Brian O'Neill on the right side, fifth graded tackle by PFF. So they're pretty solid at tackle. But let's take a look at guard. So Ed Ingram at right guard is the 59th graded guard by PFF, 72nd out of 78 against the block. Ezra Cleveland at left guard, he's very good at run blocking, fourth best run grade, but he's 62nd when it comes to pass blocking grade. And here's, I think, where the Packers will really take advantage, especially Kenny Clark. I think this could be a very big Kenny Clark game. So the Vikings center, Bradbury, has missed a few games because of a lower back injury. He missed practice on Wednesday as well, and it's possible he'll miss this game once again, miss the next game. And the player who has filled in for him is named Austin Schlottman, and he has been not good whatsoever when it comes to playing center. Last week, he allowed 6 pressures just by himself. Week before that, 4. Week before that, 5. So if Kenny Clark lines up there in the middle of the defense, I think he is going to take advantage of Schlottman here, who is filling in at center, who has not been good. I think he has a 45 grade pass block grade by PFF. So I think when you look at that interior, you look at the weakness they have there, and then you add in Kenny Clark, who is still, I think, one of the better defensive linemen in the league. Lots of times he gets double-teamed. Then you add in Jarran Reed, who's been playing really well late, especially last week. You add in Devontae Wyatt, who hopefully will be able to make some plays there in the middle as well. I think the Packers could, knock Kirk Cousins around a little bit there on the interior, and hopefully Preston Smith can find a way to get to the quarterback, because these past few weeks he's been really increasing his play. Had a couple nice, I think he had like 2 sacks last week, most likely, maybe 1. But Preston Smith has also been playing well. So when you have a quarterback like Kirk Cousins, who I'd say is a very solid quarterback, you have one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in Justin Jefferson. You have one of the most talented running backs in Dalvin Cook, and then one of the best tight ends in TJ Hawkinson. It's a very tough team to stop, because even if you shut down one aspect of their game, there are many different things they can turn to. And so just like last week, where my thing going into the Dolphins-Packers game was the Dolphins have a very explosive offense. They're probably going to put up lots of points. Let's just hope this Packers offense can put up slightly more points than them. It worked last week. The Packers defense came alive in the second half. And I think this week, the Packers, I think, should be able to get some stops on defense, but the Vikings will probably put up a good amount of points. And so it comes down to this Packers offense being able to match the Vikings offense and put up some points themselves. One thing that is very different when you look at this Packers team through the first 9 games of the season versus the past 6. So for the first 9 games of the season, the Packers were only averaging 17.1 points per game. The past 6 games, the Packers have averaged 26.8 points per game. That changed in Dallas when the Packers put up 31, beat them in that game, and Christian Watson had his massive 3-touchdown game. We don't know if Christian Watson will play yet. He missed Wednesday's practice. I believe he's limited today. I'll be out with a injury report video later today once that's official. But Christian Watson, being as explosive as he is, has really changed this Packers offense, given them the ability to break away, have some nice, massive plays. And now we also have Romeo Doubs, who's been back the past few weeks. And then you, of course, add in the Packers running game, which I think they have one of the best backfields in the NFL, with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Aaron Jones does seem to be a little banged up. He's had some limited snaps, and we'll see if maybe he's able to be a little bit more ready to play or fully. I don't know what his exact health is, but he's had some issues there. Maybe it affected him last game, maybe not. But hopefully the Packers can sort of feed A.J. Dillon in a game that it should be pretty cold. I looked at the weather before this, and it's like 26 is the low, 37 is the high. So it's not crazy cold, but it's still a pretty cold game. And when you have to try to tackle A.J. Dillon in the open field when it's freezing outside, that can't be any fun whatsoever. So I expect the Packers to try to run the ball in this defense If we look at their rushing D, they're the 19th ranked rushing defense in the NFL. They also have the worst passing defense in the entire NFL. So I expect Aaron Rodgers to feast in this game. Hopefully Christian Watson will be healthy, Romeo Doubs, and I think this Packers passing game should be able to, move the ball down the field. And if we look at their overall defense, they're the 28th ranked scoring defense in the NFL. So I see no reason why the Packers can't put up, 25, 30 plus points in this game. And I think they may need it considering just how good, as we've discussed, this Vikings offense has been this season. And one big difference, I think, when we look at week 1 versus this week, was it week 16 or week 17? I think we're week 17, potentially, whichever one that is. But week 1, listen to the Packers starting offensive line. It was Josh Nijman at left tackle, John Runyon at left guard, Josh Meyer center, Jake Hansen at right guard, and Royce Newman at right tackle. Since then, the Packers offensive line has gotten a lot healthier, mainly besides Bakhtiari and his injury. Elton Jenkins has been able to be a solid, playing very well at left guard. Recently got his new contract, 4 years, 60-something million? Something like that. And so this Packers offensive line has done a pretty solid job of protecting Aaron Rodgers. And Bakhtiari could be back this week as well. And even if he isn't fully back, Zach Talon has played really good at left tackle. The only other injury is Josh Nijman at right tackle, but he did play. He was limited yesterday. And I think that if there was an area of major weakness coming into this game against a very solid pass rush in Zadarius Smith and Daniel Hunter, it would be Royce Newman playing at right tackle if Josh Nijman isn't able to go. But with him practicing in a limited fashion, I feel like he'll be able to go on Sunday because he has a shoulder injury. But we'll see there. But the Packers offensive line has done a pretty solid job at protecting Aaron Rodgers these past few weeks. And I think that when you look at the talent the Packers have on offense, I think that we should be able to continue our streak of putting up a ton of points on offense. And one, I think, thing that could be seen as a problem, could be seen as, well, the Packers could improve in this area, is their red zone offense. They have not been good in the red zone this season. And I was reading an article this morning by, I think it was PackersNews.com, Tom Silverstein, and he said that when you look at LaFleur and their red zone efficiency, or their red zone efficiency, they're 24th in red zone offense touchdown rate at only 51%. So hopefully that will improve. And if we look at their touchdown rate inside the 10-yard line, it's only 50%, which is the worst right now in the NFL. And if we look at Matt LaFleur's time here in Green Bay, in 2019, he converted 72.4% of the time inside the 10-yard line, 90.5% of the time in 2020, and then 74.3% last year. So if the Packers can start to be more successful in that area, I think that we could have some much more convincing wins because, as I've said, the past 6 games, even with the Packers struggling in the red zone, we've put up 26 points per game. So I think that's a pretty promising sign. If the Packers can start to really get going in the red zone, this offense could be taken to the next level. So for my score prediction in this game, I'm going to go Packers 28, Vikings 20. I do think it's going to be a somewhat of a close game. We've seen the Vikings all year. I think they're 11-0 in one-possession games or one-score games. So they've been really good. We can't count them out no matter what the score is at any point in this game. But I think with the Packers at home in Lambeau Field in a must-win situation, I really do have confidence that the streak the Packers have been on the past 3 weeks will continue. I believe we'll beat the Minnesota Vikings. Hopefully the Commanders lose, and then we'll have one final game against the Detroit Lions at home at Lambeau Field. Winner would take, I believe, the final playoff spot. So very exciting time for the Packers. It is very exciting that we were sitting at 4-8. Now we're at 7-8. Lots of hope right now for this Packers team. But feel free to comment your score prediction down below in the comments. If you haven't followed me on Twitter and you use Twitter, feel free to follow me, Luke_Beller. Will be also linked below. That's all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.